And I think we're live. Let me
Good.
check over here. There's a delay of like 10 seconds, but yes, we're there. Brilliant.
Okay, should we start?
We can give just a few seconds, just so that you know things are starting, and yeah, let's get started then.
Okay.
We'll trickle in.
Great. So I am Dr. Andresa de Souza Santos, currently director of the Brazilian Studies Program, and this is the Coffee and Science. The Coffee and Science is a space that we created for Brazilians at Oxford to present their work, but also for the general population of Oxford, of students and professors who have a research on Brazil to gain feedback and build up collaborations. So the name Coffee and Science indicates what we do here. We drink some coffee and we share science, we share the results of our research. And today we are extremely happy to have Nuno with us. I will let Chico introduce Nuno, but we know that he's extremely busy, and so it's a great pleasure that he made some time for us. And it's Dr. Chico Camargo who will introduce Nuno. Chico is a postdoc researcher at the Internet Institute here at the University of Oxford, and he works developing computational methods for social scientists. And Chico, as usual, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So it's really an immense pleasure to introduce Nuno Faria here. Nuno studied medical biology and computational biology in the Netherlands and Belgium before becoming a research lecturer in Oxford. He, in 2017, became a Sir Henry Dale Fellow of the Wellcome Trust and Royal Society UK. And his research focuses in investigating the evolutionary dynamics of viral pathogens by integrating real-time genomic, ecological surveillance and mobility data, many kinds of data. He's particularly interested in understanding what drives the ignition and sustained spread of emergent infectious diseases such as Zika, yellow fever, chikungunya, Ebola, influenza, HIV, and of course, COVID-19. So Nuno will be talking to us here today, and feel free to send any questions. I'll be taking questions and then saving them for Nuno in the end. Yeah, without further ado, Nuno, it's you now.
Hi, thank you, Andres, and thank you, Chico, for this invitation. It really is a great pleasure and a great honor to be here today with you too, and with all everyone else who's listening to us, and especially those with a mug with some coffee on it. So we're all drinking coffee. We're all drinking good coffee at the moment here, and yeah. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to, in a very informal way, to chat. And to chat a little bit about the research that I've been doing over the last few years, and I can try to finalize with some of the current topics that we are sort of all investigating. Yeah, I don't know, Chico, do you want me to share a screen? Can I just quickly share a screen here?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay. So for me, research-wise, it kind of...
Sorry, no. I think you need to click share screen in our interface here, and then share all of the screen.
Share screen, application window, coffee and
if you can maybe share all of the screen, yeah. Yeah,
is it working?
There. Let's see. Yeah, I see a PowerPoint. You know.
Yeah, is it working?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's working.
Great. So for me, I've it all started with HIV really. So I started doing research back straight after during my master's, actually in Amsterdam, and I started working on the origins of HIV. I was particularly interested in how and where did it start, the largest pandemic or one of the largest pandemics we had seen so far. So that was a few years ago. That was back in 2009. So by then, we knew two very important pieces of information. And you'll find, like, throughout this talk, there's a lot of parallels to what we've now all been hearing in the news about the origins of this new virus that is circulating and causing the ongoing SARS-CoV-2 pandemic. So back in the day, the first reported case of HIV was in 1981. By then, people didn't really call it HIV. Later on, only a few years later, people have 1984. The virus was identified, or seroprevalence studies identified antibodies to the virus in Central Africa, in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, but also in East Africa. And then subsequently, in 1998, there was this very interesting finding of pieces of fragments, very tiny fragments, of HIV-1 genomes in paraffin-embedded tissues in Kinshasa, in the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Interestingly, these tiny little fragments of HIV were the oldest that we know so far to date, and they were recovered from someone who lived in Kinshasa in 1959. So this is the oldest evidence that we have of HIV so far. So suggesting that essentially what we've discovered in 1981 and call it a few years later in 1983 as HIV virus was actually already circulating for a much longer period of time. So HIV is a plural virus, and as you've all listened to, coronaviruses are also plural. Each virus has their own sort of different virus lineages, and HIV is not. There's not really, it's actually quite similar. So we have evidence for 13 different cross-species transmission events, and some of you might have heard about this in the media now. And another name for this is zoonotic events. So, and that happens when a virus crosses the species border. So the virus comes from, for example, gorillas or Pantrogonitis, Trogonitis, chimpanzees into human populations. Eventually, it may spread or may not spread, depending on several ecological or evolutionary factors. The virus might find fertile ground to spread in populations that are, for example, at a higher risk of infection, and then spread spread internationally. So in this case, for HIV, we have two different types. We have HIV-1 and HIV-2. And depicted here on the left side is only a tree, a phylogenetic tree showing the ancestry of HIV-1 virus groups, HIV-1 groups. And we have group M, which is the main group. We have HIV-1 group N, we have HIV-1 group O, and we have HIV-1 group P. And they go from the absolute extreme. For example, HIV-1 group P has only been found in 2 people. We know it comes from SIV, simian immunodeficiency virus from gorillas, that are very closely related to the HIV-1 group group P sequences available so far. And then in contrast, we have HIV-1 group M, which stands for main or major, and infects most of the 40 million people infected with HIV currently worldwide, right? So what we know from the origins of this HIV-1 group M is that they are closely related to SIV from chimpanzees, Pantrogonitis from the southeast corner of Cameroon, Central Africa. But because HIV probably emerged a few decades before, even before its first detected fragments in 1959, the virus has diversified in many different lineages. So that currently we have what we call subtypes, 9 different subtypes, and many, many other circulating recombinant forms, which essentially occur when an individual becomes infected with 2 different subtypes of HIV and produces sort of a new virus, which is called a recombinant form, and infects another person, or infects at least more than 2 people or 3 people, and there's a new virus lineage being formed through this process called recombination. So that gives origin to a variety of and a huge diversity of virus lineages, and it's one of the reasons why effective vaccine for HIV is so challenging. So this tree essentially shows all the different subtypes that we know so far, and the circles show the global proportions of each of these subtypes. So, for example, subtype C is the dominant subtype worldwide. In Europe, for example, and in North America, we have mostly subtype P. But so one of my works during my PhD was to investigate the origins of HIV-1 pandemic, or Group M, and this is kind of a summary of what we've done during my PhD back in Belgium, and then in the beginning of my postdoc here in Oxford. So we first looked at sequences, genome sequences collected from a variety of locations within Central Africa, which correspond to these tiny little dots here in the map, mostly in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but also in the neighboring Republic of Congo. And we used what we call a statistical phylogeographic approach to estimate the, essentially on the left side, to estimate the time tree that is essentially colored, in this case, by ancestral geographic location. So this is what we call a phylogeographic tree. So we try to reconstruct the locations and the ancestral locations throughout the entire evolutionary history of this pathogen up until its root location. So the root location, in this case, colors correspond to cities, and red corresponds to Kinshasa. The root location is in red. I don't know if you can see my cursor here. And using this sort of approach, we find with very high, strong posterior support or statistical support that the roots of HIV-1 Group M were in Kinshasa around mid-1920s. And then from there, the virus spread through a very highly effective mobility network, mostly railways, to other locations in the rest of the DRC and the rest of Central Africa, and then eventually from Kinshasa to the US and to the Caribbean and to the rest of the world. So this sort of information, so we can actually get information from the sequence data from georeferenced timestamp sequences, is actually extremely useful, and we have been applying that continuously throughout the last years to a variety of different systems. So back in 2014-15, I also started looking at another virus, another public health emergency of international concern that we're all very familiar with, Zika. We started looking at different Zika from different perspectives. We had what we call the Zebra project. We now have CADE project. I will talk to you a little bit about these projects. We also had the ArboSpread project in Luanda, in Angola, which is directly connected to air travel to several places in Brazil and vice versa, and has a very similar climate. So whenever it's warm and humid in Angola, it's warm and humid in many different parts of Brazil. And that's important because given that
Hello, everyone. I think his connection just dropped, so we'll be here on pause for a moment, but I'm sure that Nuno will be back in a moment. Eu posso over here. O pessoal que está ouvindo em português, a conexão dele caiu por um instante. Eu acho que não tem a ver com o número de pessoas assistindo, mas é muito legal ver a quantidade de pessoas assistindo aqui. So let's wait for just a little moment. Vou pausar aqui e vou colocar uma imagem. Andresa, você está aí? Andresa, aqui estamos voltando. Come over here.
Hi, I'm here.
Hello, okay, back.
Hello. It's been
So-
a great talk. We are very excited to have Nuno with us, and we hope his connection is back very, very soon. And
So
yeah,
yes.
I think this is the busiest conference science we had so far, like with lives, like people watching. I got many messages from people in Brazil and elsewhere saying that they are watching us live. This is great.
Do you wanna, okay, right. Do you wanna carry on? Shall we just talk a little bit about the efforts about COVID-19 that are happening here in Oxford since, well, Nuno might actually get to this point later, but shall we just bring this up right now for the people who are watching?
Yes. So I think, is he back?
No, not yet.
Okay.
So,
like Chico and I, we are part of a research group that Nuno will explain later. And we are doing a very large collaboration to understand more about COVID-19 in Brazil, which involves different fields of expertise from epidemiology and medicine and geography and what else? Politics, social sciences in general, and statistics, and the list goes on and on.
Oxford has been actually doing a great job in responding to the pandemic in various ways. You might be aware of the folks in the Latnic School for Government that are tracking the response of different governments to the pandemic. I think that is quite original stuff that is really good to happen right now, to be happening right now. There is also an initiative with folks also across the medical sciences, the Internet Institute, and I think engineering as well, to just put together a lot of data sets and try to set up some, essentially just one place with all the kinds of data that we might need. And that has been in consultation with economists, with public health specialists, and other people who are kind of advising them on what kind of data is needed. Because you might have noticed that, well, especially on social media, there are many people sharing things like dashboards and trackers, and many people drawing exponential curves and fitting and kind of trying to extrapolate that. And what some people here in Oxford are trying to do is to just put that all in a single place so we can really concentrate our efforts and amplify the signal of the people that are doing really good stuff. But when it comes to Brazil, then what we have been doing in this group, and I think Andresa can talk a little more about that, we've been looking at really the local impact of that. Andresa, could you mention a bit on how people are responding to COVID in Brazil?
Yeah, so, well, in the group we are working on, we are looking at, as I mentioned, different phases of COVID-19 and using different disciplines to do so. And in Brazil, of course, we have different challenges. It's a very large country, continental size, and divided into 5 different regions, 27 states, and 5,570 municipalities, which makes mapping all the responses an incredible effort. So we should thank all the collaborators we have in Brazil, people sharing data with us. And just a bit on what Chico was saying about the response to COVID-19 at the University of Oxford in general, I also want to highlight some of the talks that we are having at the Latin American Center that have a focus on Brazil, but also in other regions, other countries in the region. And we are also collating publications that are coming out just now and that have a focus on Brazil and other countries. So this is another one of the many initiatives that we are having at Oxford. And everyone, I don't know how about you, Chico, but everybody I talk to, they ask me, when is the vaccination ready? When is it going to be available? Because we know Oxford is also a very important institution on that. And yeah, we keep our fingers crossed. That's a question I never know how to answer, but we know it's happening here too.
It is happening. If you want, you can take a look at the webpage of the Oxford Vaccine Group. and that's literally the name. You can look it up. And they are developing a vaccine for COVID-19, and that has also been a massive collaboration. There are also many people from Oxford, from other fields, and that are volunteering as subjects for the vaccinations. I was speaking to someone who, in fact, I was seeing some news on someone who had some misinformation, some fake news spread about her, because some people were spreading some wrong news that the first person to be vaccinated with COVID had died, and they were naming her, and she actually had to go, I think, to the BBC to then say, "I'm not dead, I am here." And in fact, there has been also a lot, well, I mean, you might be aware of that. There's a lot of misinformation spreading about COVID-19. Particularly in the UK, there are people saying that the 5G towers are spreading the virus and whatnot. There's been some effort in Oxford to try to track that too, to try to track the types and sources of type of claims made about COVID-19 in Oxford. I was just checking some of them here. Some claims, well, apparently the number of fact checks in English has risen a lot, has risen more than 900% just from January to March. And by fact checks, they really mean those people whose job is to take a claim you might see being shared on WhatsApp or Facebook, and just go down to the evidence, see whether that is true or not.
That's incredible.
There's plenty about it.
So do you have any news about Nuno? While I'm sure like we have almost 40 people online now, they are waiting to hear more from Nuno. And I want to raise the expectations of everybody who is there and really say that Nuno is a leading scientist in the field. And for people who have been following the news on COVID-19 in Brazil, we know that Brazil was very quick in responding to COVID-19 scientifically, and one of the first countries, and they sequenced the genome of the virus within, I think, 48 hours. Am I right, Chico?
I think so. I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and was in the same group of that Nuno leads, the CADE group, that he will talk more, and the collaborators is there, and all the partners in São Paulo, and names are skipping my mind just now because I get a bit nervous online, but I should probably say more names before we leave this video. And yeah, and it's worth mentioning that this group is really a great position to discuss the epidemics in Brazil.
Indeed. I think his connection still hasn't managed to come back, so how about we stop this here and then just advertise a new time, probably a new date for the lecture, instead of trying to take it from here.
Okay, so he's not coming back today. Okay.
Still no news. It sounds like we managed to break his internet. So to everyone who's watching, congratulations. You broke Nuno's internet. I'm kidding, it wasn't. But that was, yeah, that was really good. It's really great to see this many people interested. I'm definitely very interested in watching what Nuno's got to tell us.
So to keep people informed, and then for the next time, what I will do, I will post in the YouTube link right now 2 very recent publications by Nuno. One is a preprint, and another one is the report by Imperial College that he's one of the co-authors. So people can read that and find out a bit more about his work, so that when we are back, which will be another day that we will announce, I'm sure the questions will be more elaborated, and we will learn more from him that way as well. I'm very sorry this happened. I guess it has to do with the number of people who were watching us live, but we actually don't know if that was the cause. But if that is so, then it's a good reason for the technical problem.
Now I'm going to post here on the chat a link to a report talking about the kinds of lies that are being spread about COVID-19. I just posted it there. Yeah, and if you want to know more, if you want to see when the next live is going to happen, you can follow the Oxford Brazilian Society on Instagram, and we should be posting there when our next talk happens.
Exactly. We also have a Brazilian Studies Program page on Twitter. We are also on Facebook, so we're going to keep you informed. And thank you very much for watching us.
And see you soon.
Bye.